welcome to Manu Forti Ministries presents Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny. I am your host, Reggie Key, and today's guest is none other than Tamika Law. Tamika, how you doing?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I am all right. Now it looks like you already kind of in a scholarly environment. Looks like you're in your office, so we
Yes.
can really get into the academics or not of our topic today, which is genius.
Mhm.
So I have a series of questions for you, and I just want your candid responses. Are
Okay.
you ready? Can you be candid?
Yes.
Yeah, I know you
Can
can.
be
I
candid.
know you can. All right. So the first question is very simple, and it is, Tamika, do you consider yourself to be a genius?
No.
All right. So why not? Well, let me say this. I've never asked anybody that. My fault. That was kind of a curveball. I've never asked somebody that way. Like, why not? Typically what I say is, one, that's normal. Most of us do not consider ourselves to be a genius, but most often it's because we hear this word and we already associate it to someone, and that person who we associate to, we're like, nah, I'm not the one. I'm not this person.
Yeah.
So the proper second question is, who comes to mind when you hear this word genius?
Okay. So, of course, the very first name is Einstein, right? He was
Right.
like genius. Everybody's like, when you say genius, right there. Okay.
Yes.
Um, so I have met many geniuses in different areas. So
Okay.
I know of some what I consider musical geniuses,
Uh-huh.
people who have the ability to understand, comprehend, and express music in a way that regular people cannot.
Yep.
I know creative geniuses,
Yes.
people who can use art, their hands or, colors in a way that regular people cannot.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are intellectual geniuses that I associate that term with, who can take something and make it something, like they just
Yeah.
do things that I cannot do.
Okay.
So, I feel like I know a lot of geniuses. I just don't think that I am one of them.
Okay. So I like that you already have these different categories of genius, because most people that I feel like who think of Albert Einstein really compartmentalize and make genius only about intellect and academics.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was this physics genius, right? And like, I don't know what E equals MC squared is. I don't think I care. What is the theory of relativity? Don't try to explain it to me.
Right.
Don't really have a
Right.
use for it. So if I can't understand or appreciate what he did, then yeah, I associate it to him and disassociate it from myself at the same time.
Right.
And this is not the way it should be. You've already begun to even broaden this idea of genius, because you recognize that it's academic or intellectual, that is musical, that is creative, but it goes much further than that. There are as many. When I do this workshop and I'm talking to like 20 different people, I tell them, look, I'm looking at 20 different geniuses as far as I'm concerned, because would you when you think of Einstein, do you think of him as a musical genius?
No.
No, from that perspective, I mean, I think he probably did play some instruments, probably because he was just like out there, but he's not to the level of the geniuses that you've had company of or have witnessed, right? Because you're in that music industry. And
Mm-hmm.
so just as we shouldn't compare or try to rate or judge Einstein's genius outside of his lane, outside of his element, we shouldn't do that to ourselves or allow other people to do that to us,
That's
right?
true. Yeah.
So Einstein got this, he understood this, and there's this quote that purportedly comes from him that really like creates this great metaphor, this great image that I think will help us unwrap this a little further, because we're going to deconstruct genius a little bit and then build
Okay.
it back up. All right. So you ready? I saw you. Was you repositioning? You getting ready for the quote?
Listen, I got my pen. I got my pad.
Oh, that's
I'm
right. You
ready.
are. You like notes. All right. So I'll make sure to say it slow so you can write it down. All right. You ready?
I'm ready.
If you judge a fish by how well it can climb a tree, it'll
Mhm.
spend its entire life thinking it's stupid.
Wow, that is very profound.
It is, though.
It's very, very profound.
Einstein knew something. He knew like I'm not the only. Don't define genius by me though. I'm just
Mhm.
I'm in my lane.
Mhm.
Einstein's the bear. He needs to be climbing up trees, but don't look at Einstein climbing up these trees and be like, man, I need to be climbing these trees too.
Mhm.
Because when you fail at it, then you're going to be like, yeah, see, I knew it. I'm not a genius. Or
Right.
if somebody else comes over and said, hey, fish, you should be climbing this tree. Like,
Mm-mm.
no, but
It's,
you
I mean, we do that every day in our lives.
do.
We pigeonhole people to our limit or perspective of what we think they should be doing or that they can't do. Oh, you
Great.
can't do this, so that means you're not that.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
That's
And,
very that's very profound.
and it's one thing for people like, this is where prejudice kind of sits in, right? Oh, I don't think I've used that word before during this interview, but it just came to me today. Um, this is where prejudice sets in and discrimination because people, to make their world make sense and to make their world logical, they look at somebody and judge them. All right, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, and you're going to do this, so that then they can walk around and be comfortable and not have any surprises. But when someone does that without getting to know the person, right,
Mhm.
that in effect is mislabeling them and then shorting them and putting a limit on them. Now, that's I don't want to call it exactly a fault. We all do that. We all discriminate in our heads to a certain degree because we're trying to assess our environment and how we fit into it.
Mhm.
But the danger comes when, and this is why I do this interview, the danger comes when the person or the fish does not know who they are. And so when they begin to get these labels, they're like, well, maybe this is who I am, though. Maybe this is all I'm supposed to be.
Listen, that is the story of my life.
No.
Like literally the story of my life. That's the story of my life. Starting even as a kid, because growing up, Tiffany was the smart one. I
Mm-hmm.
was the talented one,
Mm-hmm.
which interpreted to me was I'm not smart.
Yeah.
So I grew up thinking not that I was dumb necessarily, but not that I was smart.
Relatively compared to your sister.
Correct.
But the funny thing is when you hear your sister tell the story, she tells it from her perspective, and she felt like you had all the accolades, all the attention, right? I've heard you all tell your stories from two different perspectives, and I'm like, are y'all living in the same house? Because the one sister is like, man, everybody was sweating her, and like I was like the chopped liver, and then you hear the other sister, and from their perspective, is saying the same thing. So it's always this. We do this as human beings. We just compare. And Second
Right.
Corinthians 10:12 tells us, like, do not compare yourselves with yourselves. Like, don't do
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
But I don't know why it's our default reaction to
To
really
do
do
it.
that.
Mhm.
But like, let's go back to this idea of this fish trying to climb this tree. If you now I know that 2021 and 2020 have been really weird and we've seen some things we ain't never seen before. But I'm telling you right now, Tamika, if I look out my window right now and I see a fish in a tree, it's time to get off the planet because that's everything is topsy turvy.
It's a
Nothing makes
done.
sense
Right.
anymore.
Right. It's
I'm gonna
done
I'm gonna
deal.
go find Elon Musk and be like, I'm on the next rocket off the planet because something about to end. Because we know if we see a fish we literally have a catchphrase that says, "Hey, you're a fish out of water. You're somewhere where you don't belong."
Mhm.
And if we were to see a fish on land, we'd be like, "That's not right."
That's not right.
Because where does the fish belong?
In the water.
In the water, in its element, in its lane,
Habitat.
right?
Mhm.
And you may see this fish flopping around, not being very successful on the land, but you put that joker back in the water, and
Mhm.
you're gonna see exactly what it was meant to
What
do
it's
and
meant to
how it was
do.
designed and
Mhm.
how genius it is that it can flow through this. It's streamlined to cut through the water, and it has the lungs or the
The
gills
skills.
to
Mhm.
breathe in it, and you're gonna see this fish literally come to life. But if that fish stays out of water, though, what's gonna happen?
It's gonna die.
It's going to die. So I'm here, 2 days after resurrection to revive your genius.
Come on, revive my genius. Yes.
Revive your genius because if we continue to look around us and point to other people for what they're gifted to do, and if everybody's doing that, just like you and your sister, there's something that's getting overlooked and something's not getting done correctly because we're like, well, you got a genius, so you'll do it. You got a genius, so you'll do it. But if everybody's pointing to someone else, then it doesn't really surprise me that we look around and see so much brokenness in the world because someone's always looking at somebody else like, well, somebody else got the capacity, the gene's potential to handle that. I don't. When
And
in
it's
fact,
also what you said, you don't know who you are.
yep.
If no one has ever affirmed you as such, if no one has ever given you the confidence to walk in it or believe in yourself, you don't know who you are. So you look into someone else to see what you are. I mean, that was my whole life.
Yeah.
That I didn't know who I was. So I looked for other people to define me, or I looked to other people to, oh, well, I can kind of do that. Well, maybe I can do that. Or I don't do it as good as them, but I'll try. Like I didn't, it was not introspective. It was not internal.
Yeah.
It was all external.
So you're getting, you are possibly getting farther and farther away from your genius. It's like this fish getting farther and farther away from water. And you're like asphyxiated and don't even realize it's like you're not able to breathe right because you're getting away from what God designed you, where he designed you to be. And I mean, I see you flourishing in it now. So I'm glad that you made it out of that season in your life to be walking in your genius now. But so many are getting lost in what's the phrase? They're just getting lost in the translation, so to speak. And we're going to get back to that translation piece actually in a little bit when I give another example. But it's just, when I think about my plight as an African-American male, there are so many times where somebody tried to make sense of their world by putting a label on me that didn't belong.
Wow.
And, it's in the music. And it's not just, somebody else outside of my culture doing it. It's in the music that I listen to. It's in the things that I watched where, there were only certain, the imagery 20, 30 years ago, you didn't see us unless we was depicted as thugs, criminals, athletes. It's not all bad. Athletes doesn't seem like a bad thing to be labeled as.
But it's just so small and limiting.
Yeah, it's limited. And if I'm like not athletic and somebody's telling me like you should be athletic, then I'll be like, oh snap, like what's wrong with me?
I've met so many really, really tall men who are not athletes. And the story of their life is the first thing someone says is, what do you play? Do you play basketball? Do you play football? And they're like, no, I don't play anything. And they think something's wrong with them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You didn't. Why you ain't do that? Because that's not my thing. But you tall, so what?
Like, what that got to do with the price of tea in China? Like, why? I mean, I'll never forget. And I love like blowing up people's minds, by the way. I love shifting paradigms just with like, I got a shirt on. Like, every shirt I got some type of passage reading on it, just so people that read them like, oh, snap, what I just say? So I remember going to college for the first time and I had a scholarship, right? And I was there accepting my scholarship, just mingling with people. And somebody came up to me like, oh, you have a scholarship, football?
Wow. Yep.
No, actually, it's merit-based and I'm here studying computer engineering. Pick your mouth up.
Pick your head up.
Right. Pick your mouth up. Right. Just see your mind kind of being like, oh, snap. And then kind of, just, so that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to kind of, not just your mind, but just whoever's listening, just to kind of expand and expose, because genius is really about exposure. And I'll give a story I got a lot of stories about exposure and how that works. So I'm going to walk you through your genius by 3 components, Tamika.
Okay.
And those 3 components are passion, talent, and purpose. So if we can get through passion, talent, and purpose, by the end of this interview, you're going to be able to see your genius. All right.
Passion, talent, and purpose.
Passion, talent, PTP, passion, talent, and purpose. Okay. So is there anything else I want to say about genius before we move on? So I mentioned that it was about exposure. So here's another example for you. This is when I was much, much younger. I was in probably like 4th grade. And I had been taken out of Christian private school because my sister graduated. So once she was out, it was like, yeah, we can't do this. You're going to have to go to the neighborhood public school. And first of all, I was just a terrible transition for me. I got mercilessly picked on because I was smart and I didn't fit in. I tucked my shirt in. It was like, what is up with this dude? Like, who are you? But I eventually managed to befriend some people. And I remember we were having a trivia day. It was like getting near Christmas or something like that. And so the trivia, just random questions they throw out there, and you were on teams, you would get points or whatever. So I remember one of the questions was, what is the song title for New Year's Eve? And everybody was looking around, and I was like, Old Lang Syne? And the people was like, this dude is Like, this dude is a genius, but I was real. Back then, Tamika, I promise you, even back then, I was like, no, don't call me that. And it's not because I was afraid of getting picked on, but I was like, don't call me that. Let me tell you the background as to why I know that. And so I told them that at my house, we didn't have a normal doorbell. We had a doorbell that you could program different chimes on. And we had 26 different chimes. You would pick them A through Z. So I was the smallest person in the house, and this door chime was high up to program it. I was the only one who would program it because I was like amazed and just marveled at this thing. I would play with it. So I would go through A through Z, like, okay, what's that song? And it had a little title. And I would go through, like, do I recognize that? And I would change it for the holiday, for Christmas, whatever. I would change the chime because I just thought it was like the dopest thing ever. And so I remember one time I got all the way to like Z, and I was like, what is Auld Lang Syne? Like, what? And I hit it, and I was like, oh, should all acquaintance. I was like, oh, okay, that's New Year's. I know that. And then bow, it just stuck in my head. Now, so I told them, I'm like, it's not that I'm smarter than you. It's that I don't know if I use the word exposure, but I was like, I've just been exposed to something that you haven't.
So many, yeah.
And that's what any type of genius begins to do. It's about exposure.
It's about exposure.
Go ahead.
No, that I'm agreeing. That is definitely what it is, because and it makes you stand out if you are around people who have the same experiences. You have those plus some.
Yeah.
So something comes up, you know it, and then it makes you like, well, you should be one of us, but you're not, because this and we don't know it. But it's really just exposure.
It's just exposure. That's what a lot of advantages are, just about exposure, right? And so expanding your horizons begins to get into this idea that you're more than just your surroundings, right? And then two, now I'm going to transition into passion. Exposure is also about the things that traumatize you, though. Think of this fish. This fish was traumatized. And if this fish ever gets a chance to get back in the water, let's just suspend reality right now. If this fish got a chance to get back in the water and then it encounters other fish, one thing that I imagine this fish would say is, hey, look, don't try and climb that tree over there. That's not what we do. That's not what we designed. You see what we're doing effortlessly? This is what we're supposed to be doing.
This is what we're supposed to do.
But this other fish doesn't try and like jump out the water and do this thing too. And so this trauma that the fish went through to be out of water, it begins to inform this fish like, no, this is where I'm supposed to be. But how it looks in our lives is, because when we start talking about passion, Tamika, I'm not going to have us focus on, hey, do what you love. That sounds nice. But for genius, I'm going to say save love for marriage. When it comes to your passion and your genius, focus on what you hate.
Really?
Yes.
Focus on what you hate. Why?
Why? That's a great question. I'm glad you asked. The thing that you hate is likely something that you were exposed to when you were younger, and it's something that made you feel ostracized, marginalized, pushed to the side. It made you feel like a fish out of water, and it caused some trauma. And that thing, that systemic thing, because most of the time it's not going to be something small, it's going to be something large. That thing, when you begin to see how it affected you and how it made you feel, when you get older and you see it still operating and hurting other people, you're going to be like, oh no, somebody got to do something about that. If you find yourself constantly talking about it, it's almost like it jumps out at you. You go into a room and you see it like, oh, I hate seeing that. I hate seeing that operate and limit people and harm people the way it harmed me. And that's at the root of ministry, right? Like, we know that the strongest ministries are birthed out of the situations and traumas that we endured and survived and made it through. And isn't that facts though?
You got me thinking. My brain is definitely churning, because yeah.
I got more examples, but I'll
nod and say yes. I'm just going to
all right. That's when you're thinking real hard. You just be like, it's like doing
so just as something very, very small. Growing up, I hated chaos. I hated things being out of order. So it was me who would go into the linen closet and fold up all the towels and make them neat.
I'm the same way.
It was me who went into the closet and made all the hangers straight and put the pants together and put the sweaters together, and the shirts together. That's me, because I hated like chaos. I hated stuff being like in no order and all kinds of. I hated it.
I
I
hate
hate it to this day, which is why I'm a great organizer on my job. I bring structure, I bring
Yep.
order to areas. I hated being in school and we had a substitute teacher and then the kids all acted crazy.
Right.
I
Right.
hated that. Like y'all wouldn't act like that if Miss
Y'all
Johnson
acting
was
like
here.
some fools, right?
I
Like this
hated
is
that.
life.
Yes. So
You know
that's just
what?
a small thing.
It's small, but I'm gonna let you know that it's big at the same time. So hold up, before I go there, you give me a lot of good content. Asia did this to me yesterday too. Um, I didn't expect you to say that, but when I was talking about when you go into a room and you get something jumps out at you,
Uh-huh.
literally, my family can't stand it. I'm like this, and I'm like, I promise you, I'm not doing this on purpose. But I can go into a room and see that something's out of order, and
Yeah.
it'll be like a speck on the carpet. I'll be like, anybody gonna pick that up? Nobody sees that, huh? I gotta be the one to pick it up. Okay, they're like, yeah, because we don't see it. And I've come to realize my dad was like that. I've come to realize that that's just the nature of who I am. I bring order to things though,
Mm-hmm.
because something jumps out at me. I got I got a lot of stories for you today. I got this other funny story. When I was in college, one of my best friends borrowed a belt from me one time, right? And so I don't know how days, weeks, whatever went by, but one day he's in my room and I'm like getting ready to go, I don't know, somewhere. And I open my closet and I'm like, huh.
My belt missing.
Like, something is out of order. Something's off with my closet. And my friend is like, really, dude? I'll give you your belt back. And I was like, oh, that's what it is? I knew something was off, but I forgotten that he took my belt.
Mm-hmm.
And so he thought I was trying to throw a hint. I'm like, no, I promise you, dude, I wasn't. I knew something was off. I just couldn't pinpoint what it was. But we have an eye for
I
like,
have an eye for detail, which
yeah,
makes me effective on my job. Eye for detail in words, written words, documents, and but also like I can walk in, I can tell if someone's been in there, I can tell if someone moved something on my desk, or I can walk in and just like you said, see what's missing, what's been disturbed, what's been moved, what is there that's not supposed to be there. Who put this right here? Because this wasn't here yesterday.
Yep, that's how I be in my house. They can't stand it. Like that's not in the right place though. That's not where that was when I left. They be like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I do that at work and at home.
Mm-hmm. Now you're saying it's small, but the devil's in the details. And literally, the reason why I say focus on what you hate is because when God looks at this planet and he knows how he built it and how he designed it originally, he sees that it's out of order. Mm-hmm. He sees that something is off, but he knows what the thing is that's off about it is sin. He knows that he kicked out Lucifer, and Lucifer fell to the third rock from the sun and took a third of his angels with him, and chaos has broken out in the world since that point. He looks out like, I need to do something about that. Mm-hmm. And he did. He did something amazing. He created us.
Right.
In his image and likeness. I'm going to set y'all down on this planet. I'm going to make you even of the planet so that you have authority over it, so that you can speak and work and put this planet back in order. It's out of pocket right now.
Right.
I need you to put it back in order. So that's why I say it's small, but it's big at the same time, because this whole planet, if I say that the planet is broken, would you be like, nah, it's fine? Or would you agree with me?
I would agree with you.
You would agree with me. Sin or wickedness, the scriptures say that he who loves God hates wickedness. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I say you begin to focus on like, yo, that's not, and it won't register to everybody, because it doesn't affect everybody the way it affects you, because God gives you a portion of his heart. He's like, I want you to fix this particular thing, so I'm gonna let your heart get grieved the way my heart gets grieved.
Whenever you see that thing.
Whenever you see it. Mm-hmm. And so you stop saying like somebody should, you know what, that somebody
is me. You. Yeah.
And so that's the genius of this, because everybody, when I go talk to kids and they're not sure that they want to talk to me, if I just ask them, tell me what you hate though, oh, they firing off. Like, I'm like, okay, let's go with that. Mm-hmm. Now I get like dumb stuff like coconuts and tomatoes, and I'm like, I don't know what you want to do about that. But when I then begin to explain it, they're like, oh snap, let me. And then I start getting things like, hey, I hate hypocrisy, I hate racism, I hate injustice, I hate bigotry. I'm like, okay, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Yeah.
Now, those are kind of some big words. Those are like my middle school, high schoolers. But let me tell you a story about, remember I talked about being lost in translation? Let me tell you about some third, fourth, and fifth graders that I encountered one time at a school. So these third, fourth, and fifth graders were all placed in one class all day. First and foremost, yes, look at your brow. That doesn't sound right, right? Now, how
Unless
many
unless
developing?
you're a Montessori school, like sometimes that
This
happens,
was
but
not that.
even no.
This was not Montessori. This was a public school, and all these little boys, about 10 of them, were on IEPs, or individual education programs, or what we would have called special ed back in the day. And they had things on, they had labels on them like ADHD, you don't fit in, and so you have attention deficit disorder, ADD, you have emotional outbursts in class, you have
Or
this.
something's wrong with you. Like
Some label of brokenness was put on them, and they were pushed aside and put into this class all day, like alienated from the rest of the school. So of course, when I get in there and I'm like, well, tell me what you hate. First of all, I say, each and every one of you is a genius. And they was like, what you talking about, Mr. Keith? Like, they were mad at me, Tamika, that I actually gave them a positive affirmation. It was like, they had like I spit on them.
I've had
Them.
that. You know my story about Larry telling me that I was a teacher and how I got so angry with him for telling me that I was a teacher. Yes. He was trying to give me something positive and I was mad.
Hey,
no teacher.
He does that though. Like, I remember we were barely cordial when he said this to me one time, but he said he walked by me in a hallway one day and was like, "What's up, man of God?" And I was like, "Man of God," like, and I was saved. I was like a Christian, and I was still offended because it was something about man of God that made it sound like minister to me, and I was like, "Really?" But then look where I am now, though. We've been talking about not despising your prophetic words, haven't we?
Yep.
So
and don't reject what the prophecy says about you
just because you don't like it,
just because you don't like it
yourself. So yeah, these boys were super offended that I said genius, but then I bounced back and I said, well, tell me what you hate. And keeping in mind that these boys were like fish, was like fish out of water, and keeping in mind what system made them feel like a fish out of water, what do you think all these little boys told me? They could never agree on anything, but this one question, they all said the same thing. What do you think it was that they told me they hated?
They hated being in that school and that being labeled that.
No, you said it the first time. School. It's like, we hate school, Mr. Keith. Now what? They was looking at me like, yeah, I done messed your whole little message up, didn't I? And I said, actually, no, you didn't, because if you're listening to what I'm saying, that you were put on this planet to fix what you hate, then I'm looking at 10 future educators, teachers. I said, you're future teachers. And they got real quiet. They was like, oh, snap. What did you just say, though? And here's the thing. Here's where the lost in translation comes in. Have you heard me talk about how there's like 7 or 8 different learning styles?
Yes.
All right.
I don't know what they are, but yes.
Yeah, we're not going to get into like what they are, but I'll tell you the 3 that are taught most in school is auditory, visual, and logic. The left brain, right? If you don't speak one of those 3 languages, though, everything that's being communicated to you is going to be lost in translation. You'll be like, what are you saying? I don't understand this. And you're going to get frustrated. So I understand you're having outbursts in class. You have attention, your attention, they can't keep your attention. You like roaming and walking around. You probably are kinesthetic learner, which means you got to be moving around to process things. Exploratory, expeditionary means you got to move, grab hold of things with your hands, and then tell you, keep your hands to yourself. And so, I mean, all these boys was always all over each other and all over stuff. So I'm like, we're alienating the solution to the school system, because the school system is definitely broken. Teachers have never disagreed with me when I say this out loud in the classroom. They're like, yep, it is. But the thing that's breaking it is that we are marginalizing the solution, because if each of those boys identifies what their element is, what language they speak, what's their learning style, and then takes that learning style, and instead of running away from the brokenness of the school system, but runs towards it and says, hey, I'm going to become a teacher, their learning style then becomes their teaching style. And now they're going to reach somebody else who is speaking the same language as them.
Right.
And if the whole school system is restructured so that, hey, all the kinesthetic learners are going to be with a kinesthetic teacher, all of the visual learners are going to be with a visual, and we break it out that way, no child's going to get left behind anymore.
Nope.
I heard 2 people who told me that, hey, look, my teacher noticed that I needed to move around, and they allowed me to. They gave me the freedom to move around, and I was able to grasp concepts in class. But by and large, like, most people don't experience that. Most people don't have a teacher that's that attentive to be like,
right. No, because it's not taught. Even the teachers are taught one way.
Yeah.
They're not even taught to recognize. What they've been conditioned, though, is if a student has this behavior, it means this. And
Get them
most
out
of
the
it
way.
is negative. Most of it is bad.
Yep. Because we're trying to get the people who respond to the system as it is to the end line, to the, we're trying to get them through the race, because we're like, hey, look, if we can get them to the finish line and then focus our metrics on them so that we can get funding, then it's like there's this thing where, yeah, it's broken, but it's working just enough for us to continue in how it is. And so every industry or sector of America, of the world, operates in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I'm just trying to help people navigate this system and figure out, all right, let's identify what you hate, and then go on to say, okay, well, if you see something that's broken, Tamika, if you had once you see something that's broken in your office, because you got that eye, like, what's your next thing? If it's something that's not just out of place, but it's broken, what do you begin to look for to try and fix it?
A replacement. I'm trying to fix it.
But how do you fix it though? Like, what do you look for if you see something broken? If your chair is broken because like something is loose on it, what do you need to find to be able to fix
it? I'm trying to get another chair.
You're trying to replace the whole chair?
Yeah, I'm replacing the whole thing.
What about a tool though?
Huh?
Would you try to find a tool first to fix the chair, and then maybe, or would you just throw the whole thing out?
No, so it depends on what the thing is. You gave the example of chair. Yeah. I ain't got time to try to fix the chair. It's broke. Out with the old, in with a new one.
All right. Well, I was trying to
something else, yeah. If it's something that is within my purview or my skill set to fix, then there are tools that I would reach for to try to fix it.
That's important within your skill set, right? So
yeah.
This one guy who I talked to, he was like, hey, look, I have 0s and 9s. He was like, the 9s are the things that I do really well. He's like, I'll never rate myself at a 10 because I'll get complacent. There's always room to improve. But he's like, the 0s though are the things that I'm not good at. And so he's like, I don't need to focus on those things. That's the fish out of water. He's like, I'm going to focus on my 9. So I like that you said, what's within my purview? What can I do? You're like, I can't fix a chair, so it's going to get replaced. But if it's something within your purview, you'll find a tool, right, and you'll begin to try and fix that thing. Mm-hmm. And T for tool, T for talent. If you see something broken and you're like, well, now that I know that I'm supposed to fix it, the next logical question is how? And the how is, what did God say to Moses when Moses was like, how am I supposed to free the people? He was like, man, what's in your hand though?
What's like, already in your, listen, so okay, I got a story for you.
Mm-hmm.
My grandfather, my mother's father, he's from Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew how to inward rig things.
Jerry rig. We'll say that.
Jerry rig.
Yeah.
Anything.
Uh-huh.
It didn't even matter. And it would work.
Mm-hmm.
He knew how to eyeball something and like maneuver it to, make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it was missing something, he could just look around the room. Oh, I can use that. Go grab it, put it in place or whatever. And I have that same ability. And what we've in my family, because my grandfather's name was Robert Collins. So we've now made his name a verb.
Oh, really?
You Robert Collins, that thing. Yes, I do. I put it together.
That's hilarious.
But some people don't have the eye to do that.
Nope.
And I look at them like, well, why didn't you just grab, well, I needed something, it was uneven. Well, why didn't you just grab this book and stick it up under the thing and then it's even? Oh, yeah. I didn't think about that. Everybody don't have the same, what's the word? They don't have the same, everybody can't do that. They don't think that way.
The word I'm thinking of
I'm like problem solver. I am a problem solver.
Mm-hmm.
So with this whole tool thing, when something's broken or something's not right, my brain immediately goes to how can I solve this problem?
Yeah.
Immediately. And what's in my hand, what's close to, fix it.
But so I like that you brought your grandfather into the story, because for those who would say, I don't have a talent, I always tell them, look at your grandparents, look at your parents, look at your grandparents, because talent doesn't just crop out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. It's God-given, but he gives it through families. Mm-hmm. And we know this innately we know this because we look at athletes and we see families of athletes generating more athletes. Like, oh, that makes sense. We see families of musicians and artists making more musicians and artists. Oh, that makes sense. But then we look at ourselves like, I don't know what my talent is. Like, there's a pattern to this. Remember at the Gifted Conference, I was like, same kind, man. Same kind.
So, but now sometimes it jumps generations
It
or
does.
generations. Like, I don't know who to trace my musical talent to, because in my immediate family, my parents don't sing. None of my grandparents sing. My great grandparents that I know of sing. I don't have any direct lineage or any direct source to say, oh, these people made music. These people had this gift and talent. Now, I've passed it on to my daughter.
You have, clearly.
But I don't know where I got it from.
So, thanks for derailing my whole, I guess this ends the interview. You just derailed my whole thing. I appreciate it. It's like, nah. Most people, they should just look to their parents or their grandparents to see where this thing comes from. But ultimately it does. God is trying to birth something in the generation, the lineage, that the family that you have, that you extend from, to manifest something that can be used to fix what's broken in the world. And I would still subscribe that, maybe 3-4 generations, how it says that God visits the iniquities of the father to 3 and 4 generations. Maybe those iniquities was crushing out, or they were so heavy that they were superimposed over top of your lineage. But now that you've been going through deliverance, now that you've been exposed to some things that have given you freedom and liberty, where the spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. This talent that's been underlying now can come to the surface. And it's come to the surface in you, your sister, your daughter, right? And so it's been, I would say, from what I've observed, that it's been there the whole time. And my testimony is, look at my kids. I don't know where poetry just sprouted up in me one day, and then it eventually turned into prose. And then because of my attention for detail, I was like, I think I can publish a book. And then I said, okay, well, my children are writing like I'm writing, because I've told them that, hey, Dad is a wordsmith. You're probably a wordsmith too. And I reinforced it. I didn't force them into anything, but they believed it. And then next thing you know, they got, between the two of them, they got 3 books released at 7 and 9.
Yeah.
Right. And so that is the evidence. And then I began to find out more things about my dad before he passed away. I'm like, oh, he was writing.
Wow.
He was writing to like my mom, and sending her poems and other little things. And then my mom showed me something from my grandmother, her mother. She was like, look, these are little stories that she used to write. And I'm like, wow. Right. I'm like, okay, this is starting to make sense. Right. So, but that's the proof that it's generational for most people.
Well, so, okay.
I still say it's in you.
There's one. So my dad, I have learned since he's been living with me, is that he is a music lover. Now he can't sing. He can't carry a note in a bucket across the street, but he knows music.
Yeah.
He knows melodies. He knows rhythms. He knows lyrics. He knows artists. Like he could play that TV game where they play like the first 5 seconds of a song, and you got to name the artist and the song. My daddy can tell you the name of the artist, the name of the song, and the year it came out.
Wow.
That's how good he is. When we on road trips and I just play like Apple Music or, some just music, he names each song, the artist, and the year it came out.
Okay.
So there's a musical foundation on how I express it vocally. He can't sing, but there was still a love for music that he has currently.
I'm very much, even outside of this whole genius thing, as I've been looking at how families are structured, I very much do espouse to the principle of, when we can begin to be delivered from family curses, because curses and blessings operate the same way. They're trying to propagate to the next generation. And when a family is overcome by curses, it suppresses the blessings. But as you begin to get delivered from them and repent from them and break free of these cycles that we're in, all of a sudden, these blessings begin to manifest.
Right.
It's like removing the weeds from the garden so that the actual plants that you intend to grow can begin to thrive.
Right.
And so I
Exactly.
think that's what we're seeing here. And so that generational piece, even if we like agree to disagree that it's not generational, there's still this idea that the talent that you have is your tool. Because we say things like, hey, your God-given talent. So your God-given talent is this tool that you need to then utilize to fix the thing that's broken in the world, that's driving you, that's driving your passion. So finding out like, oh, I mean, I hate that with a passion. You know, you hear people say that. And I start to pay attention when I hear that because I'm like, oh, okay. So now you're starting to
Say
tell
that
me
again. The talent is the tools to fix things that's broken in the world that
drives your passion.
drives your passion. I like
Right.
that.
Thank you. I like it too. I wrote a whole book about it. I got a whole workshop about it. And, you know, in short, that's your purpose in life is, you know, not taking anything away from Rick Warren, but your purpose in life is to identify your God-given talent and then apply it to your God-given passion. And in doing so, you will unlock your genius.
Wow. Identify your God-given talent to unlock your God-given passion. Is that
Well,
what you
to apply it to apply that thing that God has given you as a tool, your talent, apply it to the thing that's broken.
And then reveals your genius.
That unlocks your genius. And man, when you get a hold of this thing, can nobody tell you nothing. Like you won't care if it's a small, you won't care. Like, look, I don't care how big this thing is. Now you're like David and Goliath. I don't care how big this joker is, it's about to come down. I don't care how many stones I gotta throw at it. I'm gonna keep at it until this joker falls and I chop his head off. Right. And the beautiful thing about it is, you mentioned this earlier, like, hey, look, if somebody sees something and they can't Robert Collins it, they're like, I don't know how to fix that. But you're around, you're like, hey, look, I know what to do though. I can assess the room and figure out. Genius is so great that you complement somebody else's genius. They might not be a genius in the way that you are, but when y'all get together, they can approach and fix one thing and address it. And then what they can't do, you can do. And that's when, like, when we begin to activate this around the world, like somebody else on the other side of the planet may hate the same thing you hate, but they got a different talent. And so they attack it from a different way, but it's still getting addressed just how God designed. He put us on this planet to do just that. That's why he was like, hey, look, be fruitful, multiply, and replenish and subdue the world, though.
Yes.
And when we are fruitful, we all over the place on this planet, right? And so if all of us begin to be actualized, it's much like the whole principle that the Kingdom Advancement Center operates by is don't just look at the person behind the pulpit and be like, oh, they're so gifted. Like, yes, they are. But when you compare the number of preachers, pastors, ministers, whatever you want to call us, when you look at the numbers and you compare how many people are in the congregation, it makes more sense to equip and empower the congregation because the numbers are greater. If we get everybody operating in what they were designed to do, coupled with the people that are on the stage, oh man, this planet.
As long as they're the people on the stage are not control freaks and feel like they got to be the only ones.
Which, you know, that's not the case of the KAC.
No, it's not.
The reason why, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
The reason why the KAC is not like that is because that's what they saw in the church when they were growing up.
Because that's what they hated.
It was like, I hate that. Nope, this is not how church is supposed to be operating. Nope, we're not doing it this way. There's so many things this church was birthed out of that was because they were exposed to some things when they were young, like, that don't feel right. That's not how this is supposed to work.
That's right. That's right.
They're like, that's not how this works. That's not how any of this
That's not how any of this works.
And they did something about it though.
Yeah.
And they're bringing us along with them. Like, hey, look, no, it's not about us. Let's make it about everybody.
That's right. That's right. That's good. That's exactly, it just reinforces what we're talking about. That's exactly, they found what they hated. They applied their talent to it to fix it. And now they're walking in their purpose.
Now they're walking in their purpose.
It's the whole
Genius doesn't just say it's all about me. Genius looks around and says, hey, look, what you got though? Let's make sure, hey, my light is shining. Your light should be shining too. Not like mine's, but let's see how your light is supposed to shine. And we can do this together, right? And bring light into this dark world. And the I was going to say something and I lost it, but this idea that we're better when all of us, when we're not competing with one another, right? We're not comparing ourselves one to another, is what allows everybody to like coexist and not have to worry and not be threatened by what somebody else is doing. Like you said, like a lot of other places get threatened, like, oh no, don't do that.
Right.
But that's not the case
In
here.
your lane, you know what your lane is. Not that you can't cross over into someone else's lane, but if this is your lane that you operate well in, then you just do what you know how to do well. And when someone else comes along that's in another lane, you can admire it, you can look at it and be in awe or proud of it, but without any kind of jealousy or resentment or any of that. Like, wow, they do that really well, the same way you do what you do really well.
And make room for it. Like,
There's
okay,
enough room. That's right. That's right.
So looking at what you've told me, Tamika, that one of your talents, I already knew off the rip, and it's funny because you haven't really gotten into this musical talent that you have. You more so focused on your ability to your detail, your attention to detail, and your ability to fix and bring order where there's disorder. Because one of the things that you hate is disorder, and it's okay to have several passions. I got a couple things I hate. And that reminds me, it brings me back to my point. Many times, though I say don't focus on love, the thing that you hate is like the other side of the coin of what you love, though.
Yeah.
Because with your brother and your sister, what we said was with your brother-in-law and your sister that started our church, they loved the church, but they hated how it was operating and how it was off. For me, I love hip hop. I hate the message that's currently in hip hop and what's reaching the people, because that message is perpetuating this label that's getting put on Black men and women. That's like, no, that's not who I am.
That's right.
So, I love the platform. It could do amazing things, but I hate how it's being used.
How it's being used. Right. Right.
So what I see for you, Tamika, is the ability to bring order. I don't know that. Are you a composer? You're not. You've written some songs, but are you much of a composer? Like, do you organize and arrange music? No.
Organize and arrange. You mean like? I mean, so I have done it. I have. It's not something that I do all the time or even desire to do, but I can.
You can do it. When you come into if you come into a choir, because I know you've been a part of several different choirs, and you see disorder, like whether it's because like that classroom, the person that's normally there isn't there and everybody's just bucking, just wilding out. But when you come into an environment like that, I see you with the capacity and the recognized authority to bring order to chaos and say, hey, look, you in the wrong section. You need to be over here. Like you're best utilizing if you're harmonizing this way instead of this way.
So yes, you just opened something up. That is a huge pet peeve of mine, or something that I really hate is now everyone does not sing on the same level or with the same ability. Fine, there's no problem for that. However, I don't like in a choir environment, because we're talking about choirs, where the person in charge allows the people to just do whatever they want.
Do whatever they want. I want to be soprano today, like
vocally, or I'm an alto, but I'm gonna sing in the soprano, sit in the soprano section, but I'm gonna sing the wrong notes. Or I'm a soprano, I'm in the soprano section, but I can't hear, and so I'm just singing anything, and I'm messing people up around me because no one has helped me get myself together. See? And then the choir director is just going on like it all sounds wonderful when it sounds terrible. I hate that.
Yeah. So what I see for you is that you have the ability to be a consultant. You know how they'll bring in an expert, because another word for genius that the world uses is subject matter expert. That's me. And so I see your subject matter expertise being lent to churches whose choirs are out of order. And you're like, hey, look, let me help you bring this into order though. You know, like
Yes.
how, maybe about a decade ago, these shows are really popular where it'd be a restaurant that's on the verge of breaking down and on the verge of going bankrupt and closing. And they'll bring in like this person who's like, all right, I'm gonna whip you all into shape. In a month's
Yes.
time or
Yes.
however long, I'm gonna turn y'all around. You're gonna start having profits and I'm gonna reorganize, I'm gonna clean your stuff up, and then leaves it better than what they found it. And that's a consultant. And I see you as a consultant for church choirs to help bring order where there's disorder. And that fits right under the mantle of what's the name of your company?
Musically yours.
Musically Yours
Musically
Entertainment.
yours.
And maybe it has to be Musically Yours Consulting, but I mean, I see it definitely being just another dimension brought to your ever expanding.
So I actually just did a new logo, and because I am expanding and everything that I do is not necessarily entertainment.
Yeah.
That what I'm going to begin to do or what I've started to do. So now it is just Musically Yours.
Nice.
So
See, look at that.
I can apply it to different environments. Yeah. And
I know you're teaching.
I am. Yes.
What else are you doing, Tamika?
So I still procure live events. So still doing shows where I am performing, but then those where I'm not the performer. I am currently cast in a major national play.
Tell us about it.
So I am in a play. It's a gospel musical drama, and it's called Pooled, and it comes from the scripture that refers to the pool of Bethesda and people coming to get their healing. And it's a major undertaking for me because the role that I am playing mirrors my life, or at least the very recently the last 10 years of my life. And everybody has an issue coming to this pool. We all in life have issues. The question is, do we want to get healed from it?
Yeah.
Do we want to be delivered from it? And how transparent are we willing to get with God so that he can heal us? And so that's really the crux of the play. And I have a major song that I sing in the play.
Is it an original song?
Yes, it is an original song. I didn't write it. The producer, the writer of the play, the playwright wrote it, but he wrote it for me specifically.
Nice. And let me just see the Spirit is powerful. He's great. So what you're saying about, hey, come to this, the idea of coming to this pool, like the pool of Bethesda, to get delivered, to get healed. But do you know what came to my mind? There's a phrase that fits all this together. I'm pretty sure you've heard it before, but when people are gathering people who are gifted and have a certain particular skill set into one place, or they're trying to figure out what their skill set is amongst a bunch of skill sets, that's called a talent pool. And so it's only after you're being healed and delivered. We were talking about generational curses that will overcome the blessings, the blessings that are supposed to come through these generational talents. It's only as those things are pulled back that then you're able to tap into and access your talent. This is going to be I see you getting very emotional when you start to get into this role, and it's going to be suited because I'm sure there's some places that you're going to have to tap into some emotions, but because it's so close to your life, you're going to give a powerful performance because just the history of what you've overcome is you're going to be able to tap into that. But
that was the whole, like, we did an interview and the playwright asked me that specifically, how are you going to prepare for this role? And I said, I'm literally just going to go back and into my own inventory of emotions and feelings and experiences, because I am her. I am the character. I was the character. And the things that happened to her in the play have already happened to me in real life.
Yeah.
as terrible as those things are, I've already gone through all of those emotions. I remember what they feel like. So when I'm reciting these lines, and at a moment, at a point, it ain't gonna be acting.
No,
It's gonna be the real thing, because I already did it, been through it.
But you're gonna in that raw transparency, someone else and many people in the audience are going to connect with you and be like, oh snap, and it's going to unlock something in them. And that's how genius works. Remember I told you, like, you get delivered from something, and then your ministry begins to speak to it, and then you help other people get delivered.
Right.
So that's going to be, and it's going to be 1,000-fold, because everybody's role is going to be doing that at the same time. So this is going to be a game changer. But I need you to see it. I need you to see it though, Tamika. Like, matter of fact, I'm not even going to say it. We're nearing the end of this conversation, of this interview, and I want to end it how we started. Tamika, do you consider yourself to be a genius? Do you see it now?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I see it now as I fight off misconceptions of what I've compared myself to from other people.
Yeah.
Or defined what genius is, and then excluded myself from that definition.
The whole
that's
point
essentially
is
what it is because what I do real good, and no one can be better at being me and doing what I do. There's no one that can do it better.
If you can, that sound like the homie DOC. No one can do it better. Right? Tamika, like, you, as much as readily, there's a scripture that says that the person that gets up and looks in the mirror and straight away forgets who they are, like, that's a person who doesn't know that they've been made in the image and likeness of God. And so as readily as you get up in the mirror and say, good morning, Tamika, you should be like, good morning, Tamika, genius.
Yeah.
Because then that sets your day off, and it lets you know that you have something to contribute to the world when you go out into it, versus feeling intimidated by what the world's going to give you. Like, nope, I know, as much as my name is Tamika, that I have genius, and what the world calls genius and subject matter expert, the Bible calls the mind of Christ. You are a born again believer. You are part of the body of Christ, and if you are part of the body of Christ, you have access to the mind of Christ, because he is the head of the body.
That's right. That's good.
So I think we're ready to wrap up. I think you got some other stuff though that you know what? Yeah. So you come to me and say that you have a book that you want to write that's going to be is it a memoir that we're doing? That I'm helping you publish?
Yeah, I'm gonna say it's a memoir. It's definitely factual. I wouldn't say a biography per se, but just, things that have happened in my life that I've experienced, things that I have overcome, things that I want to help other people with, give them encouragement, and yeah.
So check it. When you begin to practice for this play, have a pen and pad ready, because some things are going to start flooding back to you as you tap into this history that you have. And you're going to need to, just like you're writing those right now, like genius and passion, like, get ready to write this down, because the bulk of your book is going to come out as you are going through this play.
Wow. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
And when you hit the last period, you know who to call, because I'm gonna help you get that joke out to the world.
You already on speed dial. So the play is, if I could just drop a shameless plug.
Please do.
Is it will be June 9th, 10th, and 11th in Bowie, Maryland, at the Bowie Performing Arts Center.
Okay.
There are 4 shows: Friday night, Saturday matinee, Saturday night, and then Sunday matinee. So you can go to the Bowie Performing Arts Center website and get your tickets. It's going to be amazing.
Please tell my sister, because that's my mother's birthday weekend, and she should definitely go.
Oh, she should definitely go.
Yeah.
There's a lot of characters, and I promise that everyone that comes will see themselves in a character.
Yeah.
In the situation. It covers the gamut of human experience. Anything that could happen to people, especially us African American people, how we operate in our families and what goes on, and all of the secrets and all the shames and the stuff that we don't like to talk about, the taboo things. Everyone will see something that they can relate to in this play.
Ministry.
It's a must see. It's definitely ministry. 1000% ministry all day long. I mean, it's gonna be some shouting, folks gonna be getting delivered, it's gonna be crying, it's gonna be all of that.
Yeah.
All of that.
That is amazing.
Yes.
So that's the show. I am your host. I am the author, the workshop facilitator, the self-publishing guide guru, Reggie Key. And this has been Manu Forti Ministries presenting Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny with my genius guest, Tamika Law. It is my uncommon cue to see the genius in you.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode. Make sure you pick up the book, Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny by my dad, Reggie Legend, available on Amazon and at inkwellspoken.com. Connect with us at Inkwellspoken on all social media platforms. If you enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload.